Yesterday, Charles said Buddha ordained ascetic Subhadda, and what do they do afterwards? As is given by this stanza, Bhagava Upasamatitua Kamatana Hachiki. That means Buddha gave him higher ordination by making him become fulfilled with the trainings of a monkhood. And after ordaining him, the Buddha gave him the meditation lesson, or preached the meditation lesson to ascetic Subhadda. Today this will be discussed. There are two kinds of meditation. One is samatha meditation, Vipassana meditation. And of course, the kind of meditation which is given is the kind of meditation which has to make him an arahant within a short time, within a matter of, say, an hour. So there was no time for the Buddha to give him the samatha, the meditation lesson on tranquility practice. If the Buddha had given this samatha meditation lesson, then ascetic Subhadda would not be able to accomplish it within the short span of 1 hour. So when it is said that the Buddha gave him the meditation lesson, and we have to, nothing is mentioned specifically as to what kind of meditation lesson was given to ascetic Subhadda. However, later on we'll find that the Buddha gave him the meditation lesson on insight practice. We'll find that later on. And it appears that ascetic Subhadda had not even heard the Buddha's discourses before. Only within an hour or so before the final passing away of the Buddha, Anapana, at about midnight time or past midnight, that he was able to listen to Buddha's discourse. And also he did not possess any knowledge concerning the Buddha's teaching, Buddha's sasana. So we have to think about or remember what kind of meditation lesson was given after the Buddha has ordained him. One has to be careful about this, that some people would say that unless one has known or learned this doctrine of dependent origination, Paticca Samuppada, in detail, one cannot undertake the practice. That is, to understand the cause-effect process of mind-body. Unless one knows that, it is not appropriate for anybody to undertake the practice of meditation. If one does so, it will be like dreaming, or like a dream, like dreaming a dream. So this kind of concept or idea can disrupt the practitioners, can depress or dishearten the practitioners. They are blind talk. And Sayadaw says he was also one of them when he was young. Happened to be one of them. At one time when he was young, the 2 university students came and became ordained. And of course at that time Sayadaw was teaching only the theoretical lessons, studies, and about 30 years old. So he was very, somewhat, you think himself highly about himself about the theoretical knowledge, scriptural knowledge. And of course he can reason out things perhaps better than majority of people who are used to his study, who are involved in the study of scriptures. And after ordination, these 2 students asked him to preach the Dhamma and give them the meditation lessons to undertake the practice. Of course, he thought very strange, it's weird. So in his idea, he had this idea that unless one studies or learns or knows, first of all, this Paṇḍitā Sayadaw, the doctrine of dependent origination, at least knowing theoretically. With book knowledge, one cannot undertake the practice. That was his idea. He also was thinking like that. Otherwise, he also thought that it would be like having a dream. At that point, one elderly gentleman told him, advised him, that he giving the analogy that if a person is sick and is suffering from a disease, even if one does not know the medical science, one is not skilled in medical science, if one will be treated by a doctor, medically treated, then of course this disease can be overcome. One can be treated of the disease. One can be cured of the disease to some extent. So too, if one is able to give meditation lesson, then one can undertake the practice, and in his or her own right, one will be able to overcome this kilesa disease. So at that time, from that time on, he rid himself of this addiction to this scriptural knowledge, that one must have the theoretical knowledge in order to undertake the practice. So from that time on, he was free from this kind of addiction, this adherence to scriptures. And when it was said in the beginning, some people were saying or teaching that unless one knows Paṇḍitā Sayadaw, the doctrine of dependent origination, it is not possible for anyone to undertake the practice. He happened to be also one of this some when he was young, thinking that unless one knows or learns, one has learned this doctrine of dependent origination, at least from the theoretical aspect, it is not possible for anyone to undertake the practice. And Sayadaw admitted now he happened to be one of those some. Such blind talk can depress or dishearten the would-be practitioners. So at one time he happened to be one of them. One may argue that as for Subhadda, he has not learned or known this Paṇḍitā Sayadaw in detail, and that he had not heard this. Of course, there was another person called Elder Chanda, who was born at the same time with the Buddha. One may say, for argument, that because this Elder Chanda had not learned this doctrine of dependent origination, that he was not able to progress in his practice. Of course, for Elder Chanda, he was so much addicted to doctrine of Atta, had so much adherence to doctrine of Atta, that he was not able to progress, and only Elder Chanda was only one in that kind of category who was not able to progress in his practice. So only one is able to learn just from the theory, just to know the cause and effect process, and if one believes in that, have faith in this, in the cause and effect process, then one can be fulfilled with this theoretical knowledge and will be able to undertake the practice. If one is able to practice mindfulness by noting every arising mind-body object, in the course of the practice one will be able to discern cause and effect, the conditionality of psychophysical phenomena. By doing so, one is said to have accomplished the learning or knowing of this doctrine of dependent origination, Paṇḍitā Sayadaw. So in this regard, Sayadaw said that he had given much talk about this subject. So I would like to touch on this point. Now, as the yogis are practicing in accordance with the instructions given by the teachers, after they have discerned mind and body, if they continue the practice, they are bound to discern, it's quite obvious, they are bound to discern the conditionality in a distinct manner, such as in the process of bending, stretching, rising, falling, lifting, moving, pleasing, and so on. There is always an intention to do so. There's always all these movements are a result of the intentions. There's always initiated by intentions. First, the intention to bend or stretch, followed by actual bending and stretching. That is how nama causes rupa, mentality causes materiality. This will be seen in the course of the practice. Such is Paṇḍitā Sayadaw, the doctrine of dependent origination. It is quite obvious that this mentality, being the cause, give result in the materiality as effect. Furthermore, one can also discern how nama causes nama, mentality causes mentality. Even if there is an object to be noted, if there is no attention, no manasikara, advertence, one will not be able to hear or see, and so on. Only when there is advertence, mental attention, manasikara, which is mentality, will there be the seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, and so on, which is again the mentality in the form of effect or result. This will be seen in the course of the practice. And then one will also understand how rupa causes nama, materiality causes mentality. While one is noting rising and falling, as one deepens the practice, falling object may disappear. Then there will be no noting of falling object. Only when there is falling, there will be no knowing as falling. Because there is no falling, there is no knowing of falling. So that is how rupa causes nama, or materiality causes mentality. And also at times rising may disappear, may seem to disappear. And because there is rising, there is a noting mind. When there is no rising, no object, in the form of rising, there is no noting mind, there is mentality. So that's how rupa causes nama. Because of the object, there is a noting mind. When there is no object, there will be no knowing of this object. And also, one can understand this object as the cause, and the noting mind, which is the mentality, is the effect. And one can also understand how rupa causes rupa, materiality causes materiality. Excuse me. Because only when there is cold, weather, these weather conditions and materiality, only when there is a cold, when you feel cold, there will be change in your body, material change. That also is materiality. So here, material is the cause and material is the effect. Because of the weather change, there is a change in the materiality in your body. When there is cold, the coldness in the body will arise. When the weather is hot outside, then the hot materiality, there will be a change in the materiality in the body as a result of this heat. Also, when one is hungry, again this is materiality, and one will feel very weak. One will feel hungry when one is not eating. When one takes the food, that is again the causative materiality, one will become healthy and energized. Also, this is materiality. And also, other examples like because of the painful sensation in the body, again materiality, there is the painful body, pain arises, and because of good feeling, there is a good well-being in the body. So one comes to understand the cause and effect process in the course of the practice. Such is knowing Paṇḍitā Sayadaw. So one need not study prior to the practice this doctrine of dependent origination either in detail or in brief. So if you are able to practice to connect your total mind with the object, as every object arises through the six sense doors, sustaining your mindfulness, by guarding yourself with the vigilant mindfulness of every rising, you'll be able to build up your concentration and cultivate insight. And for practicing yogis, one will be able to understand by cultivating this insight knowledge without purposely studying this doctrine of dependent origination, paticca samuppada. In this Pali Canon is mentioned is reaching the way to reach release from this from the cessation, to reach the cessation of tanha. How to reach the cessation of tanha? Some disciples came to the Buddha to ask the method of being released from this tanha, or to reach the cessation of craving or attachment. So to them the Buddha always explained very brief that there are this mind body, nama rupa, and such is rupa, body. Rupa has the characteristic of not knowing, and such is mentality, nama. It has a characteristic of cognizing, knowing. And so these mind, body, nama, rupa are subject to impermanence. They are subject to dissolution. They are only they are in a state of flux, constant flux. They rise and pass away. And whatever arises and passes away cannot be satisfactory. They are suffering. And such things cannot be self or soul. They are arising on their own, at their will. They are uncontrollable. And if one can understand this much, one is able to be released. One is able to understand this, reach the cessation of craving. So, by understanding this, one is said to have gained the method of practice. So, instead of following such ideas, people are talking blindly, and of course Sayadaw himself also was one of them when he was young. So such explanation had to be given in order that those people who are giving blind talk, who are in the wrong path, may be able to see what is right and will not perform unskillful, unwholesome deeds. So this explanation is given just for the purpose of these two things, that is, those who have not undertaken the practice of meditation, they will come to know what is correct and will not be able to do anything wrong or perform unwholesomeness. And also, for those who have already started the practice, will be able to continue the practice, knowing the truth, what is right and wrong. So, and also with the practice, another purpose is the purpose of explaining is in order that the sasana may prosper with the practice. Though we don't know, nothing was specifically mentioned what kind of meditation lesson was given to Subhadda at that time. But one can deduce like this. At all times, whenever the Buddha gave discourses, expounded discourses, first he would always have this discourse, make this discourse which is specific for the enlightened ones. Such subject is none other than the subject of Four Noble Truths. That our mind, body are subject to suffering. They are the truth of suffering. And the origin of the truth of suffering is Samudaya Satya, the truth of the origin. And one has got to fully understand, as much as one has to understand fully this truth of suffering, Dukkha Satya, one must also note and abandon or overcome this truth of the origin. That is Samudaya Satya. And there is such a state as the cessation of cause and effect. And such is Nirodha Satya, the truth of extinction, truth of cessation. And then there is this practice leading to the truth of cessation, truth of extinction. namely the practice of the three trainings, Sila Samadhi Panya, or the Noble Pathway constituents. In this way, there are these four. The Buddha always gave this discourse and include this subject in his discourses. Every time he gave discourses, that is knowing, abandoning, realizing, and developing. Knowing the truth of suffering is to be known, the truth of origin is to be abandoned, the truth of extinction is to be realized, and the truth of the path is to be developed. So we can deduce that at this time, at the time of Asariya Subhadda, the Buddha must have given this discourse on the Four Noble Truths. And these commentaries have explained in this way. As for Asariya Subhadda, after the Buddha has given the meditation lesson, he took this to heart, he remembered this, and went to a secluded place in one part of the garden belonging to Mala princess. Of course, at that time there are a multitude of Sangha, and he had to go to a place where there was no Sangha, a secluded place. And how did he practice when he got to the secluded place? Did he sit or stand or walk? And in the literature is given this Chankamam, Adaitaya. That means establishing or practicing this walking meditation, such as has been given in the text. So, like all the yogis are doing, he must have been practicing this walking meditation by noting by step, left step, lifting, placing, moving, placing, and so on. And it is quite obvious that it wouldn't have been the samatha practice, tranquility meditation. If it were samatha meditation like the practice of in and out breath, or the practice of meditation of the 32 parts of the body, or the mindfulness of kasina objects, conceptual objects, or asubha bhavana, meditation on foulness, or meditation on recollections, or meditation on this Brahmavihara Dhamma, such as Metta, Karuna, Mudita, one has got to practice by sitting. Only when one sits, one will be able to concentrate one's mind. Only when the body is still, the mind will be still. If, as is given in the text, he was walking by as lifting, moving, and placing, because he was moving his body had assured that his body would not be still. And if his body was not still, his mind wouldn't be still. So as for samatha, one has got to still one's mind. If one starts samatha with walking meditation, it will be difficult, if not possible, to practice the samatha meditation. So we can deduce or we can estimate then what the Buddha had given to Asariya Subhadda at that time would have been this walking meditation, such as Gachanto, Vagachamiti, Pajanati, when one goes, one knows as going. So it must have been insight meditation lesson, Vipassana lesson. If the meditation lesson is a Vipassana Kammatthana, in the form of walking meditation has been given to Asariya Subhadda, then it must involve the practice of Satipatthana, as has been said, Gachanto, Vagachamiti, Pajanati, when one goes, one knows as going. It must be this method of Satipatthana. One can come to this conclusion, like what the yogis are doing now. When they are doing walking meditation, they note right step, left step, lifting, moving, and placing. Hence, after taking the meditation lesson from the Buddha, Asariya Subhadda went to a secluded place in the Mala gardens and established or practiced this walking meditation, so as not to miss or lose this objects of lifting, moving, and placing. And as is given this expression, which means that one's noting mind must be continuous, then one's preceding noting consciousness should be continuous with the succeeding noting consciousness. so that there will be no gap in moving mindfulness in an uninterrupted flow of mindfulness. So he must be exerting his noting mind in order to be connected with the object of meditation and be able to develop his insight knowledge, beginning with the discernment of mind and body, progressing along the path, and noting and observing all these mind-body phenomena in terms of attributing the three characteristics, such as arising and passing away, their unsatisfactoriness, and their non-selfness. So it is quite obvious that he was practicing this insight meditation. So it is what the Buddha must have given is the meditation lesson of Vipassana. So after going to the proper place, it is said Vipassana Vaddhanto, developing insight meditation, progressing along the path of insight, beginning with mind, body, cause, effect, and the three attributing to all these psychophysical phenomena, the three characteristics of impermanence and so on, cultivating the samasana jnana, udyabhya jnana and so on, until the maturity of liberating wisdom and overcoming kilesas to the point of no return and become arahant. So when he became arahant, the final path consciousness, holiness, it was not the ordinary holiness. It was he was accompanied with this knowledge known as Patisambhida Pata. He was possessed of, he became an arahant with the four discriminations. Patisambhida Pata. That means he was a distinguished arahant. It is for us, for yogis, to follow this example of past ancient yogis, how they have undertaken this practice in the following way. Let's start beginning with this sentence, wording, eko, one must be alone in seclusion. Of course here you all are sitting together in a mass sit with many people in the same hall. But even if one is having this kaya viveka, physical seclusion, secluded by way of physical means, if one is indulging in fantasies, thinking, giving work to the mind, if the mind is busy, then also you will not be able to accomplish the purpose. So not only one must be alone physically, one must also be alone mentally. That means both kaya viveka and chitta viveka. Hence, this is given by the Upakato. He went into seclusion. That means into the Mala garden. Then in order to possess this kind of seclusion, in order to be secluded physically and mentally, excuse me, one must be free from these mental thoughts and fantasies, imaginations, and be free from kilesas. One must be secluded from kilesas as well. And in order to do that, one must be able to be mindful diligently. That is given by this again, apamata. One must be diligent, heedful. That means heedful in observing what should be observed, and abstaining from what should be abstained. Abstaining from things which are not to be practiced by way of sila, which are contrary to the practice of morality, things to be abstained, and one must abstain from what should be abstained and observe what should be observed, such as apamata, heedfulness, to be mindful all the time, constantly. And in order to do so, one must be ardent, exerting with ardent energy, as is given by this thing again, atapi. So that one has to be alert and awake, so that the noting mind will be connected with the object of meditation, to be diligently, and so that one will not allow these kilesas to enter one's stream of consciousness. One must be diligent, one must be alert, awake, in order to be able to note the objects. Then Paṇḍitā, that is when we are practicing in order to be free from kilesas. So the mind must be such a way that one must be free from defilements. One must be removed from defilements, so that one's mind will be pure and cultured and refined and peaceful. Then it will be affable and practicing at the risk of one's body and life. As for Sayadaw, when he became Arahant, the final holiness, it was not the ordinary Arahant. He was possessed of, he was a Visesa, this extraordinary qualification, namely Paṇḍitā possessed of ordinary qualification, namely Paṇḍitā possessed of ordinary qualification, namely